evening, everybody.
Assalamualaikum.
We are very fortunate today to be able to listen to presentation by one of our guest speaker, a very prominent person and with a vast experience in the industries. So I hope that you take this opportunity later to listen carefully on the industry needs and this and that, about the required, the expectations, the research and so on. And towards the end, perhaps you can participate in the Q&A session and get some ideas, especially those who want to do quantitative studies, what kind of topic that is relevant and so on. And those who want to do a case study, then perhaps maybe you can try and source for companies, I'm not sure. So without further ado, I would like to invite our guest for today, Dato' Dr. Sophie, to give a talk to us. Okay, thank you.
I apologize that I'm not feeling that well. I'm having a bit of cough. Can you hear me from the back? Okay, so I don't need to use the mic. First, let me ask a question. How many of you age below 30? Okay, wow. More than half of the class. That means I start working when you are not yet born. And okay, as Dr. Rosli mentioned that my name is Muhammad Sophie. I'm born and raised in Penang. I went to school here, but unfortunately during my time, we don't have many universities. We are not as fortunate as you are. There are like 20 over public universities in the country, but during my time it was only 5 public universities in the country. So the government had to send us abroad to receive education. So you can say we are lucky or not, but that depends. Some of my friends do not want to travel outside of the country, then they decided to stay. Some more adventurous, we decided to travel and then learn from the culture and from other people. Okay, let me just introduce a little bit more myself. Any one of you from AMD, Advanced Micro Devices? Wow. Yeah. I'm not sure whether you know me or not. I used to work at AMD for 25 years. And then after that, I retired in 2011, October, exactly 25 years. Then I decided to retire from AMD, just a short span. Then 3 months later, I joined Altera. How many of you from Altera? Or only from AMD? Okay. So 2 different companies, but both are semiconductor, except for AMD is the manufacturing on the microprocessor, and Altera is R&D on the FPGA. So there's 2 different. So tonight, or this evening, I'm going to share with you on the real life situation that I faced when I was with AMD and also currently at Altera. So I hope that by sharing this, you have a fair bit of idea about what you want to proceed in terms of research. Right? So I'm not going to go to the theory because you are the expert in the theory already. So just go on the application so you can see the application that you can use. There's a lot. For example, that before we begin, I just came back from Equatorial. In fact, I screwed up my calendar today. I had a problem with MIDA on the ground. Then I forgot that I have a class also today. So I have to apologize to MIDA, but it's covered by my colleague from Altera anyway. So for example, the MIDA grant, you can also do research in terms of the MIDA grant. Right? What does it require in order to obtain the MIDA grant? They have the R&D grant, they have the training grant, so you can do that kind of research. Right? And I believe maybe some of you are already involved in those kind of work with MIDA. But if not, there's also another opportunity. So I'm going to talk just a little bit, cover in the research, and and then the real situation, and then if we have time, I'm not sure whether you have time or not, but I have time until tomorrow morning. If you don't mind, or we can stop up to the examples only, or if not, if you want to hear anything about the emerging technology like IoT, the Internet of Things, or the automotive, although the automotive are not new, but in our industry we saw that there has been a new development in the automotive. So maybe by sharing this, it can give you a bigger spectrum about what are the research that you can do in IoT and also in the automotive. Okay, so if you Google research methodology, you find millions of hits in it, and then you can look a lot of books, about the research methodology. But that's not the point here. I just want to share with you that there are a lot of research that you can do, and there's a lot of method and also to analyze it. So I'm going to share three. One, I call it general. That means what are the things that we experience in the industry. Second, that I want to block. Maybe I just stand here so that I'm not blocking the screen. Second is in terms of cost. And third is dimensionless, which I'm very fond of in terms of the dimensionless. And then the future that I call it the look west. Although that our previous Prime Minister during Tun Mahathir's time, he always say look east policy. But I think it's good also once in a while you look at the look west, because that's where you can do some hypotheses, because most of the things happen in the west first before coming to this part of the this part of the world. Okay, first, control chart. How many of you are familiar on control chart or statistical process control? How many of you work in manufacturing? Okay, so you must be very familiar with SPC, right? Statistical process control. I'm an engineer. I'm a mechanical engineer, but ended up working in the semiconductor industry. So don't ask me how I ended up in the semiconductor industry. Even my father asked me how this mechanical engineer ended up in the semiconductor industry. But that's not the point. The point is that as you learn, then you can, when we come out from school, the school just teaches the basic. So it's up to us to learn more. And then we can learn, and then there's no limit in terms of the learning. There's a lot of things. In fact, when we are working, as you experience that you have to learn a lot more. While you are schooling, there's a syllabus that you just have to follow, right? But when you work, you need to know a lot more than what the syllabus, because there's no syllabus in working. So that's the beauty in terms of working. You can learn a lot and keep learn. Okay, when I was an engineer, I always struggle in terms of statistical process control. And we engineers, we just do SPC or hypercontrol chart because the specification requested us to have a process control. Right? I can honestly say that most of the chart, I'll not say all, but most of the chart does not talk to us. Why we have a chart? The chart is supposed to communicate to us when the process is out of control. If the chart is so important, why when we come to work, the chart is the last thing that we look at? Agree? Or is the chart the first thing that we look at? Maybe the chart, the first thing we look at because the auditors are coming. Honestly, right? So the chart is supposed to talk to us. When the chart can communicate to us, then we find value in the chart. Then we appreciate it. For example, car. I believe most of you can drive, right? And you see that in the car, there are a lot of components in the car. From the transmission, the engines and so on. But on our dashboard, what do we see on the dashboard? Very few meters on it, right? We see the speedometer, and then we see the engine, right? The RPM of the engine, and then maybe, of course, we have the gas, the petrol level, and then some cars have temperature indicator, some cars do not have temperature indicator, and then some will give some alarm if there's something happen, right? That's all. So you just imagine a complicated parts in the car, but only have few indicators on it that complicating to us. Just imagine one day when we drive the car, the speedometer is not working. You feel comfortable or not? Because you do not know your speed, right? Or the worst still is if the petrol level or the gas level is not working, then you do not know when you will be stranded, right? So as we drive, we were not continuously, but we were depending on these meters to communicate to us, right? Say how fast we are, so that we will not get a ticket and so on, right? So we keep looking at it, not continuously, but we. That's why the position, so that it's easy for us to look at those meters, because those meters are complicated to us, and without those meters, we are not comfortable to drive the car. However, when it comes to SPC, then we have a situation that even the chart is out of control, we don't care, right? Why? Because most of the time, the charts are not talking to us. Why? Because we collect the wrong information, wrong data, wrong variable that we need. And then in the SPC, we have the absolute chart, and then we have the variable chart, right? Those that you can measure and those that we can count. So we need to find a chart that can communicate to us. Then when the process out of control, then we immediately can take action, so that the output, if the process is under control, then we know the output will be good, or the quality is good. Right? So we have to take time to find what are those parameters that are very critical, like those in the cars that communicate to us. Although that in the car we know there are so many moving parts and so on, but only few parts are talking to us. So in the chart also the same thing. So there's a lot of work done by the engineers to find what are the parameters that be communicating to us. Then those are the parameters that we need to control, right? And then once we can control those parameters, then we can identify their behavior. Then we can do a predictive. When it's out of control, now I do not need to measure. It just gives me an alarm indicator. For example, like some of the cars, they have the sensors in terms of the tire pressure, right? When our tire pressure drop, it give a signal. It say that the tire, check your tire, the tire pressure drop. And then when it's flat, it say that stop the car, right? So before the tire flat, it already give us indicator, so that we can still move. So same thing as this, the chart must be talking to us. So we need to find out what are those parameters, and it's not easy. Because if easy, then engineers already able to create the chart quite quickly. But to find those variables are difficult. And why is it difficult? Because of the interaction between the variables. The variables alone are not so difficult, but when the interaction in the variables, that's make it complicated. It can throw you off guard. So this is one example on the statistical process control chart. So I call it a mute chart. Means that the chart is not talking to us. So it's a mute chart. Sorry, I'm blocking your view. So, whenever we have a mute chart, so stop wasting our time. Because we are collecting data, we're just wasting our time. We're wasting the company's money, we are wasting the company's resources and so on. So there's no point. We have to be honest to ourselves. Right? So don't do things because the spec asks us to do. Because the spec is written by us. So we can change the spec. You know what is a spec, right? Specifications?
Yeah, yes.
Right? Or the standard operating procedure some companies use it. Second, How many of you are managers that have subordinate working for you? You don't have. That means you're all individual contributor. You don't have people working for you. None. You don't supervise people. Okay, never mind. But definitely you do a performance management, or your manager or your supervisor do a performance management with you, right? Okay. And talking about performance management, then we have this set the expectation, the goals, and then depend on the company. Sometimes every quarter, sometimes mid-year, sometimes every year. Sometimes you have a boss that never do a review with you at all. Also you have, right? So it depends. But if you read this, you see that most company now are moving towards, in terms of performance management, there's always this rating. Some call it outstanding, some call it exceptional, and so on. Right? Some call it mid, some call it very good. So you just have various. So if you have it good, that means it's not good. Right? Although that it shows good, but it's actually not good. When you have very good, that means you are good. Right? So when you receive a good appraisal, that means the outstanding, the very good, and the good, you will not be happy. Because you say, I'm good. But why you are not happy? You are good. Your supervisor or your manager say you are good. But why you are not happy? It's good. And because the manager do not want to have a confrontational discussion with you, although that you are not good, the manager just put good, so that you don't have to go into this argument. You don't want to get the process. So instead of focusing in terms of developing the employees, right? Time is spent unnecessarily, not doing the right thing. So that's the reason we see that a lot of companies are not moving towards no rating. How many of you are working for companies that go for no rating? I mean, you are still in the rating. Okay. I think it's just a matter of time. Your organization might move into a no rating. Right? There are a lot of multinationals, especially the US multinationals, are moving into a no rating, so that you spend time engaging the employees, not only during the focal, but giving feedback to the employees for their career, and then also for their company. So this is what Deloitte have found. They found that employees and managers spend around 2 million hours a year on performance review. Okay? The problem that most of the time is about rating themselves, but not about their growth and development. So time are not well spent. So you can do a research on your current company or your current situation on performance management, knowing about there's a trend moving into non-rating, and how you want to implement, because you cannot just switch from a rated performance to a non-rated, because your employees need to be prepared to move. The managers need to know how to communicate to the employee. The HR need to be prepared, because although that there's no rating, but you still need to differentiate the employees. How you differentiate the employees when you don't have rating? Right? Let's say that you have a budget of 6%. And then how you want to give this employee 8%, this employee 4%, this employee 3%, or this employee none at all when you don't have a rating? So these are the questions that you need to ask, when you do this kind of research. Okay. from performance management, we go into the compensation and benefit, right? And then you all know what is compensation and benefit, right? So I don't have to explain the common benefit. Anyone from HR here? Okay, good. Okay. So when it comes to comp and ben, or you know, the short form of compensation and benefit, people call and ben or CMB. These are what the employees want to know. Right? What is their compensation, what are their benefits, and so on. You can touch any other thing, but not this comp and ben. You can increase the comp and ben, you can make it better every year, and so on. Once you reduce it, you have problem with the employee. A lot of question and answers, dialogue with the employee, which is normal, because we expect that when we come to work, these are the service that we render to the organization, and we expect a return from that. Right? Penang, since the early 70s, we started the industrialization. The first company that came to Penang, the 8 Samurais, in 1972, they came. And then for more than 40 over years, they are still here. So just imagine, AMD is one of the 8 Samurais. I'm not sure whether you are aware of that or not. Maybe because you are still young, maybe you do not know the history of that. The government called these 8 companies the 8 Samurai that the first came to Penang in 1972. The 8 Samurai. AMD, Intel, at that time was HP, now called Agilent, Electronics, now Osram, you know.